Hey everybody, this is Mike Hasty, Chief Technology Officer for Prolifics. We are looking at an overview today of a microservice architecture and not only the microservice architecture, but how these things can be combined together with Panther and with other technologies like Docker and cloud and build automation, and come out to a component architecture where everything is open to being adapted and redeployed and optimized and enhanced over time. So what we've got in the picture here is an HR application where we've effectively broken out the application into microservices. So we have designated functions that perform a single operation. And so for general information and awareness, one of the things that you would do is you take, for example, employee here, and then you would define all of the operations that go with an employee, from create to read to update and potentially delete, which in most cases is a deactivate and not really a delete. But we would make it so that we've defined the services that are applicable to a domain or a given data entity or related set of data entities. And then that becomes a component that you reuse not just in one application, but potentially in many applications across the organization. And so likewise, we might make a function for defining and running payroll or collecting data that goes into the payroll run. We might collect time of if this is a position where it's time based, it's not a salaried position, and we might have a performance review and appraisal system where we're creating the appraisal record and updating the appraisal record or whatever. The architecture that people go with these days is that you make these components into services, effectively Lego blocks, that you then unify together and use them in ways that then can build out your application. So out in the client side, the presentation side, we're going to design our architecture to have what's generally referred to as a unichannel, omni-channel view of the world, where whether it's a web client, mobile client, connected device, outbound email campaign, whatever other way that we might end up producing a communication channel, we're abstracted from the components that do the work, and those components then become either a platform as a service or application as a service or software as a service or other distinct pieces of the architecture that we want to be able to work with. So then we're going to go through a service gateway, because every component is 12-factor compliant. It means it contains no state, it's horizontally scalable, all kinds of factors like that. And those components are then routed through the gateway. So the gateway knows how to find the components no matter which one of them we talk to. We build our architecture so we don't care which one of them we talk to. And then each of these components talks to other components resolved by internal load balancing and routing with techniques like Docker and Kubernetes and other things, so that they can do resolution as we scale, and that they can then perform the functions that they are designed to do. Now, the idea is that any of these components is potentially ephemeral, meaning we're going to be able to destroy them and recreate them and build them again and again and again. Any of these components would be subject to replacement and enhancement over time. And using several of the techniques of Docker and Kubernetes, we are able to then also do what's called blue-green, which is the ability for us to do a hot deploy on a component where we stand up the new one next to the old one and then take the old one down, so that we can do hot deployments. So there's potentially a no outage active deploy model that goes with this, in order to satisfy that automated build process, that automated deploy process, that active substitution of components in a hot swapping model. We're going to use a variety of modern techniques, including Docker, Kubernetes. For the build process, we might use Jenkins or some other pipelining tool. And it doesn't matter that these components are made from different technologies, because they're all going to use a defined service API. And so we might have one component implemented in Java. We might have another component built in Node or .NET. We may have service components that are existing in your environment today, built with Panther. And the solution becomes a unified version of all of these things working together. Each piece is capable of supporting that one function that it's designed for, and that we will then reuse it again and again across multiple applications. We believe this is the best path forward for modernizing applications. We believe that this is the best path forward for leveraging your existing investment. We believe that this is the right path forward for modernizing your UI and your customer experience. We believe that this path of making a solution out of composite components and federating them into a solution is the direction forward. Now, if I stretch this even further, some of you will have experimented with microservices and will have looked out in the market. There are other techniques like serverless, otherwise known as Lambda or OpenWhisk or whatever, where we have a component that runs on the cloud that only lives for the life of the transaction. And we can embed those into the solution, and that can become part of the architecture. So it doesn't need to be all run within your environment, provided the components can be knit together in the solution. That's what we would then have as our way to go forward with any of the techniques that we would use, so that it's low risk, low impact, leverages the investment, takes us forward with the new technologies. All I have for you today. Thank you very much. This is Mike Hasty. Talk to you soon.